photos that changed our world. Lunch atop a skyscraper, 1932. It's the most perilous yet playful lunch break ever captured. 11 men casually eating, chatting and sneaking a smoke as if they weren't 840 feet above Manhattan with nothing but a thin beam keeping them aloft. That comfort is real. The men are among the construction workers who helped build Rockefeller Center. Mushroom cloud over Nagasaki, 1945. 3 days after an atomic bomb nicknamed Little Boy obliterated Hiroshima, Japan, US forces dropped an even more powerful weapon dubbed Fat Man on Nagasaki. The explosion shut up a 45,000-foot-high column of radioactive dust and debris. This famous photograph was taken in 1984 by Steve McCurry and an Afghan girl, 12-year-old Gole, who is residing in an Afghan refugee camp in Pakistan, appears during the invasion of the Soviet Union. The image was used as the cover of the National Geographic magazine, and soon became one of the most famous casings, and the name of the girl remained unknown for a long time. She has also been often referred to as the Afghan Mona Lisa. In 1985, during the volcanic eruption of Nevado del Ruiz, in Colombia, the city of Armero was destroyed. Young Homero Sanchez remains trapped in the rubble and mud for 3 days. Frank Fournier took this photo of the little girl who unfortunately cannot be saved. She was 13 years old. (1989). A lone Chinese man blocks a line of tanks in Beijing's Tiananmen Square in a protest of violence against pro-democracy demonstrators. After the photo was taken, he was pulled away by bystanders and the tanks continued onward. This Pulitzer winner by Eddie Adams captures General Nguyen Anh Loc Loan, killing Viet Cong suspect during the Tet Offensive in 1968. The photograph unsurprisingly had a detrimental effect on the general's family and reputation. Adams later apologized to the general. (1963). John F. Kennedy Jr. salutes the funeral procession of his father, President John F. Kennedy in Washington, D.C. 1965. Muhammad Ali celebrates his first-round knockout of Sonny Liston in the World Heavyweight Championship match. (1968). Extending gloved hands skyward in racial protest. U.S. athletes Tommy Smith, center, and John Carlos stare downward during the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner, after Smith received the gold, and Carlos the bronze for the 200-meter run at the Summer Olympic Games in Mexico City on October 16, 1968. Australian silver medalist Peter Norman is at last. (1991). Camels among a backdrop of burning oil fields in Kuwait during the Gulf War. Photographer Steve McCurry, National Geographic. 2011. President Obama and his national security team in the White House Situation Room during the raid which led to the killing of Osama bin Laden. Photographer Pete Souza, White House. Alfred Eisenstadt's photograph of an American sailor kissing a woman in Times Square became a symbol of the excitement and joy at the end of World War II. The live photographer didn't get their names, and several people have claimed to be the kissers over the years. Six decades after her death, Marilyn Monroe remains one of Hollywood's most adored sex symbols. Her sultry legacy is often traced back to the 1954 image of her posing over a New York City subway grate in character for the filming of The 7-Year Itch. Monroe's then-husband Joe DiMaggio reportedly witnessed the spectacle and became enraged with jealousy. They divorced weeks later. Dorothea Lange's photograph of a struggling mother with her children in 1936 became an icon of the Great Depression. Lange was traveling through California, taking photographs of migrant farm workers for the Resettlement Administration, when she came across Florence Owens Thompson. "I saw and approached the hungry and desperate mother, as if drawn by a magnet," Lange recalled in 1960. Alberto Corda photographed Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara in 1960 at a memorial service for victims of the La Cubra explosion in Havana, Cuba. The portrait, titled Guerrillero Heroico, has been widely reproduced through the decades, evolving into a global symbol of rebellion and social justice. As a supporter of Guevara's ideals, Corda never sought royalties for the distribution of his image. In 1937, Semshia photographed the Hindenburg disaster while on assignment in New Jersey. The crash killed 36 people and ended the era of passenger-carrying airships, which were once hailed as the future of flight. "I had 2 shots in my camera, but I didn't even have time to get it up to my eye," Shia later said. "I literally shot from the hip. It was over so fast there was nothing else to do." On Albert Einstein's 72nd birthday in 1951, photographer Arthur Sess tried to get him to smile for the camera. Tired of smiling for pictures, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist stuck out his tongue instead. It went on to become one of the most recognizable images of Einstein, who reportedly liked the photograph so much he asked for 9 copies. Cotton Mill Girl, 1908, established in 1904, the National Child Labor Committee, existed to fight for the rights of child workers in the USA. They realized that the most powerful tool they had was to show the real face of these children. They believed that seeing these images of child labor would awaken the citizens to demand change. When Louis Hine, an investigative photographer, came across Sadie Pfeiffer, one of the smallest children at work, standing at just 48 inches, he knew he had a shot that would change people's views. This is the first photograph ever taken. It was made by Joseph Nice von Niepce. Interestingly, the first permanent photograph ever taken was not by an artist, but by inventor Joseph Nice von Niepce. His fascination with printing led him to set up a camera obscura at his studio in France in 1826. The window scene was cast on a pewter plate and presented a crude copy of the scene outside his window. It was an 8-hour exposure and there is only one copy, a positive image. This is why the image is somewhat confusing, because the sun had moved across the courtyard during the exposure, causing shadows on both sides to appear. The Apollo 11 spacecraft reached lunar orbit on July 19, 1969, as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon. The astronaut famously declared, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." In this NASA photo, fellow astronaut Buzz Aldrin walks on the surface during the mission. On January 9, 2007, Apple unveiled the iPhone. New mobile technology Time magazine dubbed the invention of the year. The first touchscreen phone featured a music player, camera, and web browser. Tens of thousands lined up outside retailer shops to purchase the new device. In this photograph by Sean Curry, Apple CEO Steve Jobs is pictured announced the iPhone's release in Britain. Ali Turwitt, segregation of water pumps in North Carolina, 1950. This picture widely gained reputation as an epitome of change by pointing out the injustice of apartheid. One can only imagine that a lot has been transformed since its inception. Kellerman promotes women's right to wear fitted bathing suits in 1907. She was later arrested for indecency. During the 1968 Apollo 8 mission, astronaut William Enders takes a thrice. It's been described as the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. Concentration camp inmates leave their ghostly traces through nail scratches, as seen throughout this guest chamber. In 1980, a missionary holds hands with a starving boy in Karamoja district, Uganda. Tereska, a girl who grew up in a concentration camp, shocks counselors at a center for disturbed children when she draws a picture of her home in Poland. "1965, How Life Begins" is one of the first pictures taken with the endoscope. September 11, 2001, two airplanes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, were hijacked by 19 Al-Qaeda terrorists. The planes crashed into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. These crashes were part of the coordinated suicide attacks. Nearly 3,000 people died. This photograph was taken at the moment the second plane hit the North Tower. The citation for this Pulitzer winner read, awarded to Edith Bolalti of the Associated Press for his powerful photograph of a lone Jewish woman defying Israeli security forces as they remove illegal settlers in the West Bank. Power of One. This photo was published in Life magazine in 1946. Waffle, a 6-year-old orphan, had received his first pair of shoes as part of Red Cross post-war relief effort. A malnourished mother and child at a feeding center in Tehu, Niger. The fingers of 1-year-old Olasagelisu are pressed against his mother's lips. The first day of Dorothy Counts at the Harry Harding High School in the United States. Counts was one of the first black students admitted in the school, and she was no longer able to stand the harassment after for days. 1957. Job hunting in 1930s, a period marked by the Great Depression. A Russian soldier playing an abandoned piano in Chechnya, 1994. The Statue of Liberty under construction in Paris in 1884. The last known photo of the Titanic above water, 1912. Upper-class and working-class children in Britain, 1937. In 1990, NASA completed its long-time vision to put orbiting telescope in outer space. The Hubble Space Telescope, the first major optical telescope, represented the most significant advance in astronomy since Galileo's telescope. NASA released this image in 2015 to honor the 25th anniversary of the Space Observatory.